Welcome to the Get Real, Get Love show. I am your host, Arlene Washburn, matchmaker and science-based dating and relationship coach. And today we have a very important and timely guest, Dr. Sam, who is a clinical psychologist with over 25 years of experience as a clinician and in private practice. And Dr. Sam's specialty is her holistic and out-of-the-box approach, which incorporates mental health and beyond talk therapy and medicine. She's very good at success coaching and everything in between. And if you're not already impressed, she is a Princeton University magna cum laude graduate where she earned high honors in psychology as well as ranking at the top of Princeton's graduating class. And she received a doctorate in psychology with honors from the Graduate School of Psychology at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine. So Ivy League all the way. Thank you and welcome, Dr. Sam.
Thank you, Arlene, for all those accolades. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Let's see, we met quite a few years ago, and I remember back then you had a practice that also incorporated addiction, dealing with addiction. And then shortly after that, we had this whole opioid crisis, and that was just like out of control. And I wonder, like, has there been an uptick, or is that issue sort of kind of dying down?
No, actually, with COVID, almost 50% of people are reporting at least either mental health or some type of addiction issue, including opiates. So I'm afraid that really nothing is dying down, and we're I wouldn't even say we're heading into a crisis. We're very much in the midst of an addiction and a mental health crisis as the result of the pandemic.
Yeah, it's funny because I've been sounding off the alarm about loneliness for quite some time. If you look at my social media going way back, I've been saying, hey, this issue of loneliness kills more people than actual obesity. And now here we are dealing with a pandemic that has created more isolation, more depression, more anxiety than ever before. What are we going to do? You said it. This is the next, crises. What are we doing? I mean, I know you're definitely doing something to help, but how are we going to come out of this?
So, I think that that really increasing the amount of quality mental health services, awareness of mental health issues, even, like the hotlines, expanding the hotlines, the services, by calling, by texting, and just really awareness of the impact that the pandemic is having on people's mental health, particularly among young adults, like between people who are 18 to 24, a majority of well-informed people know that suicidality has really gone through the roof, but that's particularly among young adults. And like 1 out of 4 people, according to the Washington Post, reported that they had had suicidal ideation in the past 30 days. I mean, that is just, unimaginable. Suicide screenings. I mean, we need much, much more suicide screenings. I think I had mentioned to you, Arlene, recently that my dad passed away during COVID, and in the very, very beginning of COVID. And he was responsible, actually, in Passaic County, which is the county that I live in, for mobile crisis units, the advent of mobile crisis units, which still exist. You can, for example, in Bergen, call 262 HELP, and somebody will literally drive to your house and come to assess you. And that service is available in New Jersey in every county, and I'm so proud that my dad was instrumental in setting that up. And so we need so much more of that. I think that people tend to undervalue the services that are provided at mental health centers. as opposed to, okay, well, go to your insurance or find a private therapist. But I feel like on the government level, we need to be providing many, many more services to people who are not necessarily going to go out and foot the bill for a private therapist. And, now, of course, with telehealth, mental health has become so much more accessible. And I'm really happy to say that my practice has been doing that from the very beginning of the shutdown. Where people could safely and securely access mental health services. So that's obviously another piece of people knowing, hey, there's still, believe it or not, people who do not know that you can, see virtually any therapist you want, and insurance will pay for telehealth. There's still some people who do not know that psychotherapy is covered under telehealth. Yeah. So that's been incredibly helpful. Believe it or not, we've seen little kids during COVID all the way through the elderly, who obviously, that's an invaluable service, telehealth, for older people who, just wouldn't be safe walking into somebody's office. And so, I feel like there's so much more to be done. And just the awareness that really a majority of people are experiencing like some type of mental health symptom, and that you are not alone, and what the resources are.
Yeah, what I love now is that so many people are coming out, public figures and people who are famous, and talking about mental health issue in a more healthy way, so that people understand that it's not your fault. It's an ailment like anything else, and it's something that needs to be addressed. And what I love about what you do, because I've been reading this book and it's so like up my alley, because I am not a fan of taking medicines unless you have to. I mean, this is coming from someone who spent 20 years in the pharmaceutical industry, and having been in that industry and, at the time, very desensitized to side effects and things like that when you're so in it and you're constantly hearing these things. When I left there, I became very reluctant to take drugs unless I absolutely need them. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to talk about your book, and curious what made you want to publish that book, Rethink Your Shrink, the best alternatives to talk therapy. I think it's phenomenal. What made you want to write that?
So just to kind of go back to double back to that. So the subtitle is the best alternatives to talk therapy and meds. And the reason that I'm clarifying that is because really in my past, in my 20s and 30s, I experienced all kinds of therapy, was on various antidepressants, after my first husband, God rest, passed away, and I was really a young widow and completely devastated. So and that was the very, very beginning of Prozac and Zoloft and the SSRIs, the serotonin reuptake inhibitor drugs. And and I have to say, at least at that time, I felt like they really saved me, because I was just overwhelmed with grief. And however, what I discovered was that, after several months of taking medication, that it did have very significant side effects for me, and also had a tendency to make me feel numb, as opposed to normal. And so I was in so much pain. It was like, okay, well, this is the trade-off. But between therapy that I thought was inadequate in helping me, and it did not give me enough concrete suggestions, didn't give me enough of a connection to said therapist, whoever it was, and there were many, many over the years. I just kept trying, thinking I was going to get it right and feel a connection with someone. It wasn't solution focused enough. There were just so many things about psychotherapy. And as I said, the medications, which made me numb, gave me side effects, ultimately led me to have to discontinue. Weight gain, sexual side effects, numbness, headaches. And so it became prohibitive. And, during my life, having come from a family that had really tremendous amount of depression, anxiety, ADHD, like you name it, bipolar, my family, my immediate family and extended family was really like full of mental illness. My parents were wonderful people, but I would say that was not like the strongest point of our genetics. And so, I was looking for solutions really to these kind of genetically derived issues that I had. And there was really almost nothing to be found. I mean, there was like a holistic community that seemed very like crunchy and granola like, but they didn't really infiltrate mainstream psychology. And so, and I was trained in a very traditional, that kind of all that stuff inspired me to become a psychologist. But then I realized, like, oh my God, this is a wasteland for any type of alternatives. To just basically tell me about your childhood and how that's connected to what you're going through on the therapy side. And, and if I can't help you all the way, I'm going to send you to a psychiatrist. So, so really my own health and mental health journey of trying all kinds of different things, starting really with my physical health, which had been an issue since I was in my teens. And as I got more acquainted with things like acupuncture, which was one of the kind of like aha moments in my life when I realized that something like acupuncture actually like worked beyond my wildest dreams, that I started to look at how they could really help my clients. At that point, I was already a psychologist, and just started to progressively experiment myself. I'm always one to say, I don't want to refer somebody unless I have myself seen that it can help me. And so, so went through this journey and then, progressively just referred more and more of my clients. So the therapy I was doing started off being years of therapy, which is the model I was trained in, to a few years, to a year, to, 8 months. And suddenly I was working with people 6, 7, 8 sessions, and they were getting just as well or better as when I had seen them for a few or several years. Generally doing something besides talk therapy, whether it be supplementation, which is almost always, alternative supplementation, and some other type of treatment like neurofeedback, or some treatment they can do themselves, like tapping, which is detailed in the book. Also an energy treatment, but it's self-administered. So that's really how that came to be. And I really wanted more than just my own clients to benefit from, from the years and years of exploration that I had done myself, which is, the reason that Rethink Your Shrink came to be.
Yeah, it's interesting because I work with a lot of clients who are just like incredibly smart and successful women. Just to give you an example, I'm working with a diplomat, a lawyer. I'm working with a Princeton University professor. I mean, these people are extremely productive and accomplished, and they don't want to be on medication because, as you said, it numbs you out and things like that. And they just have a lot of anxiety around that one area of their life, which is their relationship goals. And so I typically, recommend that they do yoga and meditation, as it's huge. But I'm going to start actually buying your book and sending it to when I get new clients, because you like lay out all these amazing things that people can be doing as an alternative to using drugs, at least to start there. I'm not saying there's, disclaimer, drugs have their place in all of this, but I think at least starting with these things that you outline in your book that are easily accessible and natural ways of healing yourself, I think it's just so important. And I would love for you to just kind of share a few of those things, especially when around anxiety and depression, because
Sure.
that right now is just out of control. If I had a nickel for every time somebody tells me that they're dealing with anxiety or depression, I mean, it's really an epidemic.
It sure is. It
Yeah.
sure is. And so um, so one of the most important things, which is really an an examination of your health, is that much anxiety and depression. I mean, obviously we're not talking about COVID right now, but just in general, um, thyroid health and thyroid care is extremely, extremely important to your mood. And most people do not know that that your thyroid in and of itself can cause depression. And if they do know that, they are not aware of the fact that the tests for to determine whether or not your thyroid is functioning normally, the tests themselves tend to be inaccurate. And so,
Ooh.
so the TSH test, which is the one test considered and certainly considered by my physicians many moons ago, is considered kind of like the quintessential be all and end all thyroid test. However, that is absolutely not true. That has been disproved, and also the ranges on that test have also have been narrowed as far as what is considered normal. So people are
Wow.
really told your thyroid is fine because their TSH is, let's say, a 3.5 or a 4. In my book, that already starts to look like something is going on. Your thyroid is a butterfly shaped gland in your neck, and it is directly, thyroid hormone is present and active in every single cell in the entire body, and particularly active in brain cells.
Hmm.
And so I have myself diagnosed hundreds and hundreds of cases of hypothyroidism over the last, 20 some odd years.
Yeah.
And it causes all kinds of issues, including not only anxiety and depression, but insomnia, which I consider its own epidemic, and things like fertility. It is intimately involved with fertility, and unrecognized by many initially reason that women are finding it difficult to get pregnant. Um, so you know, so thyroid inflammation, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, is the form of a thyroid issue that over 95% of people now experience. The majority of that is female. Of course, depression is overrepresented among females as well, and there's certainly a connection there. Getting
Yeah, and to be clear, that this thyroid thing affects men as well, right?
thyroid absolutely does, and I routinely, if people report any type of physical symptoms at all, which is virtually, in any area of the body, just about everything can fall into the category of thyroid symptoms, whether it be chronic headaches, dry
Hmm.
mouth, dry skin, constipation, excessive weight loss, in weight gain, even though eating a good diet, lack of energy. And I'm sure as I'm saying this, Arlene, you can think of lots of people who struggle with weight, a little bit of depression, low energy, and they should definitely be tested. One of the just the last point I'll say on thyroid care is that the foods we eat, particularly gluten, are very destructive to thyroid tissue. Okay, inflammatory foods are very destructive to thyroid tissue, and I immediately advise people, which makes me not terribly popular at times, to for people to follow a gluten free diet, and because there are certain reasons I won't get into that that gluten, like actually even eating a little bit of gluten can destroy thyroid tissue.
Wow.
So certainly anyone who is diagnosed already with hypothyroidism or even hyperthyroidism, which is an overactive thyroid,
Mm-hmm.
um, should be more aggressive about pursuing that. With you had mentioned before we got on the broadcast about functional medicine. I would certainly, if somebody is suffering from anxiety and depression, has been diagnosed, and is even being treated with thyroid hormone, they may in fact be undertreated. And I would strongly advise them to seek out the counsel of a functional or integrative medicine physician, nurse practitioner, to look at the thyroid issue more closely. The second thing, one of my big go-tos for depression, it is the single quickest thing that works, I would say, in 3 to 4 visits for depression and anxiety, probably 2 to 3 visits for anxiety, and 3 to 4 for depression. That's conservatively, and the research is acupuncture. So acupuncture, the studies done in China are on the comparing the effectiveness of acupuncture with to that of antidepressants in terms of the rapidity of in terms of the results is drastic. It is drastic, and somebody who is significantly symptomatic, I will generally do that by the first or the second visit. I have a wonderful acupuncturist that I'm very biased towards, located in Ridgewood, and I refer a ton of clients to him. It almost never fails. I would say out of hundreds of people, maybe 1 or 2 came back to me and said, like, okay, it's been a couple times, I haven't felt anything. In fact, a guy that I saw, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 months ago, not the easiest client I ever had, severe chronic suicidality, a very successful guy, and basically just woke up every day wanting to kill himself. It was a very sad situation. He did not believe that anything could help him. He had physicians in his family. Ostensibly, they had tried everything. And he texted me literally from the acupuncture table to tell me that he felt amazing. He could not believe it. Did not need therapy after a few visits, and really went kind of full on into acupuncture treatment for his chronic depression. And that was like, kind of makes the hair stand up on the back of my neck, like, oh my God, this is not a miracle. This is a miracle.
You better send me that referral. I think I need that too, because I tried it once and I didn't go back, but I definitely want to try that again.
Yeah,
I'm all about that.
I'll just give him a plug. Jade Mountain Acupuncture in Bridgewood. Marcus Rosario. He is gifted, and I'm so pleased and proud to say that I spotted him years ago working in a chiropractic practice where they were making him slave away, and I said, "Wow, this guy is truly gifted." So he's helped, really hundreds of my clients, I would say.
I just wrote it down. I love all of this. It's so amazing to have someone like you who has this clinical medical background incorporate functional medicine and all these other modalities that are very, that have shown results, and I just kind of wish that more doctors would embrace this, these modalities that are not just about a prescription of drugs and stuff. Because I remember when I had my office in Ridgewood, I would have a lot of particularly male clients would come to me as a matchmaker and say, I want to meet someone, but I don't want anyone who's on antidepressants. That was like a big thing. And a lot of the reason was, perhaps because it affected people sexually, or the people were kind of so numbed out and like sort of zombie like, because these drugs are so hard to modulate to get people to a place of like, being at the right dosage. And it was really eye-opening for me because I did not expect that, from on a matchmaking from that perspective, right? Yeah, so this is fantastic.
I also, I mean, there have certainly been advances in the prescription of antidepressants where anybody who is considering going on medication, which in my opinion should be a later resort. I don't want to say last resort because those drugs can be absolutely life-saving for some people. However, the fact that that 13 over 13% of people in young to older adults have been on an antidepressant in the last 30 days seems very excessive to me. And however, when antidepressants are needed, where you can't get away with supplementation, which is another huge area that most of the time is perfectly sufficient, does not require a psychiatrist. It's just another vitamin that you take in the morning. If they do need an antidepressant, then do the genetic testing. So there is genetic testing now that shows the medications that you will be a match to, as opposed to the antidepressants that are either not going to work or are going to make you the sickest. And that testing did not exist back in the years that I was on medication, and you wouldn't believe the number of psychiatrists that still prescribe, dole out prescriptions for Zoloft and Prozac and have not done the genetic testing to determine, to put somebody through actually having a really negative side effect or side effects because they don't want to go through the extra step of the genetic testing is unbelievable. It's unconscionable to me.
That's a news flash for me. I had no idea, and I will tell you, unfortunately, I know two people who were on Prozac who committed suicide, and I've heard quite a bit of that with that particular drug. So I'm so afraid to take a drug. I take a drug if I absolutely have to take it because it's necessary, but I always like to explore all these other options. But I had no idea that there's genetic testing.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yes, that is easy. It's a swab in the mouth, and super easy. Just just to talk a little bit, if it's okay, Arlene, about some of the supplements that are most available and have the best results for anxiety, for depression. So one of my all-time favorites that barely a person gets out of my office on a first consultation without being given a recommendation for it is mood formula fish oil. And a lot of people say like, oh, I'm already on fish oil. But mood fish oil has an enhanced amount of EPA, which is one of the two fatty acid chains in fish oil. And that is the thing that affects the brain most. Let's say, for example, prenatal vitamins have DHA in them generally. Lots and lots of people take fish oil as an anti-inflammatory for heart health. But the mood formula, which has generally a ratio of 3-to-1, at least EPA to DHA in it, at a sizable enough dose was shown years ago. I mean, this is going back almost 20 years to studies that were done at Harvard, showing that mood formula fish oil at a high enough dose, was comparable to antidepressants, mood stabilizers for even hospitalized patients.
That is incredible.
And nobody knows that. Yeah, sorry, Arlene, go ahead.
Does it matter the quality of the fish? Does that matter?
Yes, it definitely does. It definitely does. I'm glad you asked about that. So the smaller the fish, the better is for you mainly because you don't want any mercury sneaking into the fish oil. And fish oil made from larger fish, you are more likely to get that. And if you're taking it on a daily basis, you want to avoid that. The second thing is that if you're taking a sizable dose of fish oil, you can burp from it. That's the one thing that people can complain about. But with a purified pharmaceutical grade, very few people end up having that as a side effect. So it is available in capsules. It is available in liquid. It is also a great stress reducer. You do not have to be severely anxious, have an anxiety disorder in order to take it. You can just, I mean, it literally levels you out, makes you feel more relaxed. I think the world should be, I mean, seriously, I feel like the world would be a better place if everybody took fish oil. Because everybody would be much more mellow. So there are other antidepressant type supplements ranging from, and they're all listed in my book in the fish oil chapter. Research with some research that goes along with every one. There is something called SAMe, which is a substance that is naturally occurring in the body. Most people still have not heard of SAMe, but it is actually sold outside of the United States by prescription as an antidepressant, as is St. John's wort, where there is a lot of research on that as well, and something called 5-HTP, which is very helpful for insomnia. It should not be taken during the day because it can cause sleepiness, but taken at night before bed. It is super helpful for depression, for anxiety. It's also used very helpfully for OCD as well, which is notoriously resistant to medications, even medications. And then there really are a host of anxiety, supplements that mainly act. They can act on serotonin, like the SAMe and St. John's wort and the 5-HTP, which all primarily affect serotonin receptors. But there are also supplements that affect GABA receptors, enhance the availability of GABA, which really acts on anxiety, another neurotransmitter, and that is GABA as a supplement. L-theanine, which is a derivative of green tea. And there are many plant and flower essences that, like Calms by Highland, which you can literally find right in CVS. You don't even have to go to the vitamin shop. And that is Calms and Calms Forte, which can also be used for sleep. And something called Bach flower essence. I don't know. Arlene, have you ever heard of that? Bach flower rescue?
No, I was reading some of that in your book. And like I said, this book is something I'm going to start sending to everyone because it's just literally a guide to like this, just follow this. And then things don't get better for you, like take it to the next level. But this stuff is just like a manual, and it's the way it's written is so easy to read. You don't have to be like a scientist or anything. It's so easy to understand. And I love all the anecdotal stories that you include in each section. This is so amazing because it's so necessary for people to just get their diet right. Not to mention the other side effects besides, feeling well, looking your best too, because this stuff I'm sure has an effect on all those other things as well. Because I know some of these antidepressant medications, people gain weight and get all kinds of side effects. If you could avoid all of that and your overall, I mean, gosh, it's like a win-win.
And there's really, there's as I said, it's a blessing that antidepressants exist when that's your fourth or fifth or sixth resort. But to start taking it as your first choice, your first try doesn't make sense to me. And Arlene, I'm sure many people, particularly women, who would rather, if you pose the choice to them, would you rather get fat or would you rather be depressed? That they would take depressed any day.
Sadly, but true. Yeah.
Right. And so
Yeah.
because the fact is that if they gain weight, they're going to be more depressed on top of feeling depressed.
Right.
And so, and also I just want to say, because obviously, it sounds kind of like I'm a little negative about counseling, which is not, it's obviously what I do for a living. In the last study that was done, like only 1/3 of the people who were on antidepressants were getting any kind of counseling. So the idea that medication is the only treatment that somebody who experiences a mental health problem is getting is truly preposterous. Truly preposterous. And I would say seek out some help, seek out some help. And there are, in fact, many therapeutic strategies that are amazing for both anxiety and depression, besides dwelling on your past and, kind of focusing on your childhood, which certainly for people who have traumatic backgrounds, people who've never been in therapy before, who want to explore their childhoods, that is totally fine. But, there is short-term solution-focused therapy out there, which is certainly what we provide at my center, the Center for Transformation. And so, definitely, like never just do medication. If you need to be on medication, couple it with some type of counseling or other, one of the other strategies in my book.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, I hear so many of my clients talk about therapy, and that they've been seeing a therapist for years. And, some of that sometimes, I like the way you put it, because I know you incorporate coaching in there and more solution oriented, not just kind of going over the past over and over again, but really getting them to a better place. And I'm a big fan of that. I just love the approach being kind of like different. It's not just talking about childhood trauma and things like that, because even in my practice, I talk with people, because most of my practice these days is coaching, and I do talk about their past to understand where they're coming from, but not to dwell on that, just to sort of understand, what the parents' relationships were like and things like that. What did they glean from the past that they're still carrying forever and, not changing their belief systems and things like that. But yeah, I love this. I love this approach. I think it's just so needed. And I'm so grateful that you have written this book, and that now I get to have another resource that I can, as soon as I get a new client, I can just say, here you go, take this book, read through it. It's an easy read too. It's not like, this monstrosity of a book to read. It's so easy. It's just a manual, basically. It's like amazing.
It's my goal for it to be entertaining and, like fun as something like that can be, humorous, as well as, informative, have good research in it, but not an overwhelming amount. And also, again, my story tied in, as well as the success stories of many, many clients that I'm grateful participated in creating this book with me.
Yeah, you were extremely vulnerable and transparent, which I loved. Also, so relatable. And I actually just finished writing a book, and now I have to go back and rewrite it after reading. I'm like, I need to add some more anecdotal stories in my book. This is a better format. So now this is the book that never gets published because I keep going back. But oh my God, Dr. Sam, you are so awesome. I have a list of people that I'm going to be referring to you. And yeah, because now that people are so much more receptive and open to this teledoc, or being able to get therapy on video and stuff like that. It really opens up a whole new world, because now you can go to a really good quality therapist who's based out of Ridgewood, even if you're in California, Ridgewood, New Jersey, that is. So I'm so thrilled to my clients are all over the world. I have people in Germany and all these different places. And I want to be able to refer someone that I know is good, that has a good process, that has a holistic approach to really getting people to not have to be in therapy necessarily. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but like not for it to be a crutch for the rest of their lives, you know? So thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me. And we're going to have to do this again. I have some other shows that I want to do, but I really wanted to get you out here because this is so needed right now. There's so many people suffering, and I highly recommend this book. So, what is the best way for people to get a hold of you and to book appointments with you?
Well, I'm very happy to say that that is part of our process. We do have a live person answering the phone 9 to 6, and for people who are really in trouble, I feel like it's super important to actually have like a real person that you can talk to that answers the phone. They can they can reach us at our main number 201-556-8210, and we have a beautiful new building located at 584 Route 17 North in Ridgewood now. And they also can find us at Dr. Sam Von Reich, SAMVONREICHE.com, drsamvonreich.com, where they can read about our services and our philosophy, and they can send us an email from there, which we're very, very responsive to the emails that people send us. Also, you can find me on Instagram at Dr. Sam Von Reich, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Any one of those, you can take a look at who we are, who I am, and certainly the book that we best alternatives to talk therapy and meds can be found on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. If you love it, please review it. I really always appreciate that. And I hope you guys really, really like it and are able to put it to good use.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And I have to get on there and give you a review, a glowing review, because I'm loving the book.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for stopping by, and we'll have to do this again soon.
Definitely. Definitely. Okay, Arlene, great to see you.
Likewise.
Okay.